Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Figure Forecast podcast with your hosts, Scarlett and Maeve. Today, we have Jake on the show. Jake is head coach at Amplified Nutrition. Jake is also my coach. And we got him on the podcast today to talk about post-show and how not to fuck it up. Jake is obviously a prep and lifestyle coach, and he works with a lot of female clients. So we thought that it would be really good to get his opinion on sort of maybe what not to do, what to do, and sort of what he's experienced with it as well. So I'll pass you over to Jake. He can introduce himself and tell everyone about you.
Cool. Jake Watts, head coach at Amplified Nutrition and Scarlett's coach. I feel like I probably need to be careful what I say, because you're going to get ready to start reverse dieting soon. So you're going to get all of the insights about what's to come and what not to do. So you have to start writing down your to-do list and your to-don't, shall we say? Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about it. I think it's a really interesting subject, and certainly something that I think is coming up a lot. Actually, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of posting about this at the moment, and I think although obviously the focus definitely for today will obviously be around the female side of things, I think there's definitely some stuff that's worth me kind of talking about why I think there's kind of significant differences amongst the male population and the female population when it comes to reverse dieting. I think it'd be really good for us to kind of dive into that as well.
So in your opinion, where do you think people go wrong? Let's sort of kick it off with that then.
Yeah, so I think the thing I'll always say, I think reverse dieting is very, very difficult. And if I'm looking at my kind of clientele across the board, I would probably say maybe 30% of my clients probably successfully reverse diet. And I think the reason for that, I think the first point is it always comes down to the goal. The goal is ultimately gone at that point. And when I say the goal is gone at that point, of course, there is still a goal to reverse diet. But the main goal, obviously, what would have likely to happen before you get into that reverse diet stage is about you're competing, and, if I Scar, just use you as an example, just as an easy way to just talk about it. Like, if, for example, today, you go and eat like a complete twat all day and you're competing, in 4 weeks' time, as an example, like the detriment that is going to have potentially on your next 4 weeks could be significant to how you're going to look on stage. Yeah. If you go and smash 5,000 calories worth of food and that then takes us 10 days to get off, like you lose that time. And the impact that's going to have on you on stage could be significant at that point. So I think from a mental standpoint for a lot of people, the fight and the urge to not go off plan is much different to when you're reverse dieting, because ultimately, you finished your show now, your show's done, you start reverse dieting. Like, in the grand scheme of things, if you have a day where you go and eat 5,000 calories, like why does it matter? Yeah, okay. Yeah. If we look into the things of which we'll dive into in a second around, setting yourself up for your off season, where that's going to leave you mentally, etc. But ultimately, it doesn't actually matter at that point. Like, if you end up a couple of kilos up over that period, over that reverse diet period, like, in the grand scheme of things, does that actually matter? Like, it doesn't, and I think that's why when it comes to reverse dieting, that's a big significant part about why it's so difficult. And I think why some people struggle with it, because it's like, if you are 2 weeks out and you end up, completely screwing up your last 6 months that you've died for to get to this point, like, that's going to make a big difference. So mentally, it's a lot, although the urge will kind of still be there, it's a lot easier to fight it because the goal is stage. And if someone's sitting there thinking, battling with themselves of, should I do this or should I not do this, like the doing it is like, the impact and the consequence of it is just so much bigger. Whereas, like I say, when you're in a reversing standpoint, does it really actually matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, is it going to ruin your last 6 months No. And what a lot of people won't think about at that time when they're in the reversing stage is what it's going to do for the next 6 months. They won't be thinking about that at that time, because all they'll be thinking about is, right at this second, how can I curb this issue that I've got going on in my brain, which is I just want to eat. But the consequence of eating is so different to that consequence prior to stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What kind of strategies would you kind of have in place for people to try and prevent that? Or like, what kind of advice would you be giving to people in those situations?
So one thing that I am very, very big on, and I see this a lot in the industry, I see it a lot on Instagram, and actually, do you know what? I would probably say, I reckon in the last probably 6 months, I reckon I'd probably say I've taken on 20 people post-show.
Wow.
And when
and leaving their coaches after their show to come,
and then they're literally leaving their coach like a week after show. And one of the most common things I'm seeing in the industry at the moment is the level of support that coaches are not offering to people post-show.
Yeah. And it's like, so important.
It's so important. Like, if anything, in my opinion, it's more important than actually building up into show. Like it has the same level of importance for me, and especially in my opinion from a female standpoint, which again I'll dive into in a second about why. But just coming back to your question, and Scar will tell you this as well. Like Scar's been on daily check-ins for what, probably about 2 weeks now, I think.
Yeah.
Like bearing in mind, she like at that point she was like 6 weeks out. So like for me, my attention to detail when it comes to going into show and coming out of show doesn't change. So like as an example, I had a girl who competed she did the Wales show, which was the 2nd of July. She is still on daily check-ins now. I still have her on daily check-ins, right? She is now 7 weeks, I think about 7 weeks post-show, and is a great example of somebody who has executed a reverse diet perfectly. And I genuinely believe one of the main reasons for that is because of the daily check-ins and the attention to detail and support that I'm giving her. And that's not, this is not me just sitting here going, oh yeah, I'm so great post-show, and that's not the question. I am, but no. But in terms of the question you're asking, for me, it's that level of support and accountability that has to be provided to that client post-show. Like I get so many people that come to me, they're like, I finished the show and I got my meal plan off my coach like 5 days later. Like them five days are so crucial. Like them 5 days can be 6 kilos, or even more. Like, them 5 days can be, and once you've done that, like that's done. Like ultimately, in order for you to get yourself back to another starting point, you need to go back in the gutter. Like you need to go back in the gutter. You need to try and get that off while your cravings are stupidly high, to then start again. And if that then takes you another 7 to 10 days, that's another 7 to 10 days of you being in the hole, which is just no good. Like, and don't get me wrong, this is not me saying like, when somebody finishes show, I'm like, right, you're back on plan tomorrow. Like, that's absolutely not the case. Like, I'll allow people to go and eat something off plan in the morning, and then the next day, go for a breakfast, have a dinner with your family, but then like next day you're back checking in. Like, and that for me is the big thing that I'm seeing in the industry that is missing. It's almost like a lot of coaches are like, okay, yeah, I've got you to stage, I'm done with you now. Like I don't care about you. That's what I'm seeing. And I think the reason for me it's the accountability. Just going back to your question, it's that having that accountability every single day post show, because then you can keep an eye on someone. Like, I don't care what anyone says, right? There's no way that anyone wants to have to check into their coach 5 days in a row telling them they keep gaining. At some point, something in their brain is going to go, okay, this is embarrassing now. Like, I feel like I'm wasting someone else's time. And also, like, and it's not like in a way of like, you want somebody to feel like they're letting themselves down, but it's like at some point,
they have to own it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I shared somebody who put a post up yesterday about like kind of coaches not just letting people what they want to do, and a coach actually saying, do you know what, you need to rein it in now. And that's important. Like, that's what your coach is there for at the end of the day. Like, sometimes sometimes we all don't like home truths, right? But sometimes it needs to happen. And you know, if you've got somebody who has had 3 or 4 days where they keep eating off, like, you need to pull your finger out your ass, because if you are starting your off season, almost basically back at the weight where you started your prep. Like, it's game over from there. Like, you are screwed at that point. And I think, like, as I say, just coming back to that point about accountability, like, one of the gals, I won't say who it is, but like, she's 7 weeks post show now. She's 3.5 kilos above stage weight at 7 weeks post show. Her food is at 3,600 calories, and she is on no cardio. And that is somebody who has executed, and she's had off plans pretty much like once every 7 to 10 days. But that is a perfect example of somebody who executed and done everything perfect. And, like, you know, people can sit here and say, yeah, but you know, she's been restricted post show, but now she has that freedom. Like, now, you know, her body is now absorbing 3,500 calories a day, where she's, you know, she can go and eat a burger at the weekend, and it's going to do nothing. You know, if she just drops out a couple of meals for that day, rather than basically having to starve herself all day to eat an off plan, like, she can drop out a couple of meals now, go and eat a Five Guys, and the damage the next day is probably 200 grams, and then by the next day that's off again. Like, and it's like that. I kind of always say to people, it's that short-term pain for long-term gain. Like, you know, I'm basically saying to somebody, just give me 4 to 6 weeks post show, and I'm telling you, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. You are going to suffer. You are going to feel like you're still in prep. But I promise you that 4 to 6 months of short-term pain is going to give you 6 to 12 months of long-term gain. And like, and I think to really talk about it from like the female standpoint, an analogy I always use, and which is why, and I have to be careful when I say this, but why gals find this more difficult than guys, right? Because the fact of the matter is, right, you know, if you go in your wardrobe and you put a dress on, and you put that dress on and it feels tight, you hate it. There's no way that, I don't care what anyone says, even amongst the figure gals and the women's bodybuilding gals that like that bigger look, I don't care what anyone says. Any single gal that puts a dress on that it feels tight, you will hate it, because instantly you'll look in the mirror, I'm fat, and even if you think you've gained muscle, I don't care. You'll say, I'm fat, I don't like this. You'll take it off. You'll probably throw it across the room. You'll then try another dress on. You'll try that on. You'll go, no, don't like this either. Then what you'll probably do is go, I'm fat, I'm not going out, and I'm staying in. And then you sit there with your fellow, you're moody, and you hate your life. Yeah, that's what women want. And that's not me being stereotypical. That is facts. We all know it, right? If I post show go into my wardrobe and I stick a t-shirt on and it's too small for me, I'm like, fucking great. I'm big. I love it. You know, I'm now moving up from XL t-shirts to double XL, and I love it. And although it sounds funny, but that is genuinely why I believe, from a male standpoint, that we do handle that post-show gain a little bit better than females, because all gals, like, they like to be small. Yeah, they like to be trimmed with muscle. Yeah, whereas us guys, we like to be big. It's facts. And that's such an important part, and that's why, like, I find, especially from a post-show standpoint, it's so much more important to kind of give that accountability to your females amongst that time, because and again we come back to scale weight as well. Guys don't really stress that much about scale weight. You could literally take a photo and be like, oh, I love it. Then you step on the scale and you go, oh, I'm half a kilo up, I'm fat, because you're half a kilo up. You could love your photos, but you go on the scales, and all of a sudden the whole demeanor of the conversation changes, because actually you liked what you see, but because the scale says differently, it's now a change. And then you'll get the opposite, where you might not like your photos, but you step on the scale and you'll be a kilo down, and you're, oh yeah, I'm a kilo down, I feel great now. Like, it is very common. Whereas and that's why I think it's not necessarily that I think girls struggle more with it, but that's just how we're programmed, right? That's just how females are programmed.
I would agree.
And how males are programmed. And that's why I always say, from like a reverse diet standpoint, that is so important amongst the females. But obviously we all need to consider is, obviously, from a female health standpoint, it's obviously, it's not that it's necessarily more important from a guy's standpoint, but obviously, you know, for most key part of post-show from a female standpoint is we want to get cycles back if they've lost, and obviously try and get hormones back into function. But what I think, again, like, and I'm kind of going off tangent a little bit, but I'm going to carry on.
We love tangents.
but like what you'll see, and again, this is just my view, right? Other coaches will have different views, right? But for me, what a lot of coaches will put a focus on straight away post-show is they will just, the only focus they have is health and hormones, right? And of course that is priority, right? That is priority. But what we have to consider, in my opinion, amongst the female population in that post-show point is all of the other aspects of what that are going to go with it. And especially that comes from a mentality standpoint, because again, like, what a lot of coaches will do is they will ramp girls' food up straight away post-show, because they'll be like, right, hormones, we need to focus on it. But that's all well and good, you know. Okay, let's say after month one, period, you take that approach. After month one, period comes back, and like, you know, okay, we're starting to get back to some normality again. But that female at this point is also 7 kilos up and about to start her off season, where she gets to a point after 2 months into her off season, she's now 9 kilos up. And okay, she's got a period back and everything's great in that aspect, but she's now at a point where all she wants to do when she goes to the gym is wear big baggy jumpers and big baggy clothes. She's got absolutely no motivation to train, because when she walks into the gym, she thinks everyone's looking at her, because, or, you know, you've got, and I don't know why this happens. I hear it all the time. Like I've had 2 in the last few days where somebody outside of kind of just somebody in bodybuilding has made a comment about a gal's face. Oh, your face looks more rounder, or like, and it's like, it still blows my mind how people can even like look at somebody and think that that's acceptable to say. But if a gal is walking into a gym and she is 9 kilos up after 2 months and she's wearing baggy clothes, and someone turns around to her and says, oh, your face is looking a bit more rounder, she ain't going to want to go back there. No. And there's no way that she's going to be motivated to get in there and train every single day. She's just not going to. No. And then in a position where, you know, if you're taking a year-long off season and you're 9 kilos up and you're a month into your off season, I don't care what anyone says, that next 8 months ain't going to be productive. Because for most of it, she's going to hate going in the gym because she's not going to enjoy how she's looking. And it's all well and good that, you know, her periods function every month, but then, you know, if that's fairly heavy, and, you know, that means that she's going to have 3 or 4 days out the gym when that period comes, or even when it comes, like if she's on her period, we know gals, when they're on their period, they feel fat anyway, even if they're not. So, you know, you've got ultimately a week every month of training where she's on a cycle, training's probably going to be a bit shit, and she's going to feel shit going in the gym. And then for the other 3 weeks, she's still feeling shit going in the gym because of the weight that they've gained. And that's all as a result of us basically just saying, let's just put all of our focus into getting the hormones back in and health back in function. But I am somebody who I think, and this is where I think people need to take more consideration, is yes, that is obviously a big focus and we need to focus on that, but you need, for a gal to be productive for an off season, you need to think about, from a mental standpoint, how they're going to feel. And for me, if it means that actually you're only going to be 3 or 4 kilos up post show, but it might take you an extra 3 or 4 weeks for your cycle to come back and for your bloods to be in range, like, I'm kind of okay with that, because at the end of the day, if you've spent 6 months or 5 months in the gutter anyway, like, an extra couple of weeks as a result of you having a very good mental space for the next year, in my opinion, is just as important. Like, and I think that's and again, that's just my view. And some people might say, you know, you should just focus on getting someone's period back, and that should be the number one priority. But for me, if I've got a group of gals that are going into their off season and they hate how they look and they hate everything about what they're doing, like, what's the point? Like, you're not going to enjoy that. Like, there's
I
just
can
no
actually like 100% like confirm that feeling though as well, because I know that there was a big point in my off season where I literally had to explain to people that I was still doing bodybuilding because I was so fat. Like, I still go to the gym, I do train, like, you know, this is purposely what I'm doing. And the sessions weren't productive. Like I used to cover myself in the baggiest of clothes. Like I like that style anyway, but it was for that reason, to hide. Yeah. And I remember like even once just like refusing to go out for a meal with my family because I just had nothing to wear because none of my clothes fit me. And I was like, just cried. I was like, what the hell am I even doing?
And it's like, and again, like it comes back to that point of like, and I had this conversation with someone the other day, but you'll get people that will, your coaches that will, you know, put that focus into hormone health and stuff. And then, but they push someone so far that actually that year-long off season that person's going to have, well, 4 months into it, they need to do some kind of mini cut and pull them back for 8 weeks. So, okay, what we're going to do, we've basically we've really pushed hard to basically get your hormones back into function and working. What we're now going to do when we've just got them to a normal stable range is we're now going to plummet them again for the next 8 weeks because we've basically pushed food too hard. So we're going to do this little mini cut where for 8 weeks, we're going to basically savagely drop your calories, probably take 6 to 8 kilos out of you. And then what we're going to do is then we're then going to reverse diet you again correctly when we've done that. So we're just going to start ramping your food back up again because you lost your period because we dropped your calories so drastically through that mini cut. So, okay, here's a boatload more food again. So then 2 months spent dieting, we've not really gained any muscle through that period because you've basically been in a deficit. And especially if, you know, obviously amongst the gals that are not assisted, as an example, you know, they've got nothing throughout that 8 weeks that's really probably going to allow them to preserve much muscle in that period. But they've only been post-show for 4 months anyway. So they've only just really probably started to get themselves into a decent point where they're starting to grow some muscle. Now we're going to plummet your calories for the next 8 weeks to get some, and we're going to make sure you get your hormones going. Yeah, we're going to go back down again. And then what we want to do is we then want to bring you back up again. So we're just going to put more food in again. And then like you go through this period where, you know, over a year and a half, say if you take a year and a half or 2 years out, you if you look at someone's hormone levels, that you kind of here and you're going down, you're going back up, you're going back down. And ultimately, what value are you actually getting out of that period? Because again, from a, you know, you've got a gal who she's strong and then she's getting weak again, and then she starts to get strong again, and then she gets to weak again. Like, and for me, it just adds no value. Like I'm somebody, if I have to do a mini cut as a result of maybe somebody not successfully doing a reverse diet, that will be the only reason that I will ever do that. Like if I have successfully reverse dieted someone, I will not put them through a mini cut period throughout that time of off season, because one we've done that kind of, as I said to you, that like 4 to 6 weeks of nailing the reverse, that short-term pain that I talk about. Well, we shouldn't need a mini cut because we'll be in such a surplus by that point, but your body's kind of accumulated to such high volume of calories that the body weight you're going to be gaining is going to be minimal. But also, like, the second point is, I'm not going to push you and keep ramming food in you. Like, I don't care what anyone says. If you've got a gal that's eating 3,500 calories, she's going to grow. Like, that's facts. Like, you are going to grow when you're eating 3,500. If you've got a gal that's eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories, regardless of what level of body fat that they are going to grow. Like, but I'm not going to keep pushing you because you're just going to be uncomfortable. And it comes back to that point again. And Scar, I know you've experienced this, just kind of like what you said, where we just keep pushing. And even if you don't go through that mini cut period, like, you know, these coaches have put all this focus into getting your hormones back in place, but then they've gained so much fat on you that you've then got to go through a 36-week prep where your hormones are absolutely plummeted for that period anyway. So it's like, well, actually, shall we just almost like delay putting that focus into all hormones post-show, and actually just, you know, if it takes us about 4 weeks, a little bit longer, like, is that actually probably better for us to just have maybe 4 weeks where the full focus isn't just on hormones, and actually, because you're going to have probably another 8 to 12 weeks that you're going to have to add on top as a result of it anyway, where they're going to be more damaged. So for me, it's about the reverse diet is just so important. And like I said to you, I've got 2 gals now who one competed in May, one competed in July. They're both in excess of 3,500 calories. They're both less than 5 kilos post-show. they're hitting PBs the most strongest they've ever had. They're like 8-9 kilos down from their heaviest. If we go into a prep next year, like they're going to be in a position where they're probably 7 kilos up. They're doing no cardio, and that's another thing as well. I do not give cardio post show. So literally from the as in like from a reversing standpoint, as soon as that I've pulled that cardio when we're going into show, it's not going back in.
Okay.
I don't put it back in. Like I will literally leave it out, because again, from a fatigue standpoint, you're fucked. You're just going to be in the gutter even more. So whatever our baseline of food is, but again, I'm checking you in every day. So if you're checking in, if the look's good and your weight's stable, food's going in. We check again tomorrow. If your weight's stable, we go again. You know, sometimes I can be in a period where over a week, someone's daily diet has accumulated 700 calories. You know, at the start of the week, they might have been on 1,500. By the end of the week, they're on 2,200, and they've gained nothing.
The dream.
They've gained nothing. But you know, if you've got somebody who, I'll give you your diet for 1,500, and then you go and eat 1,500 calories on top and you've gained 2 kilos, I'm going to keep you at 1,500 until I get them 2 kilos off. So then, okay, day 1 goes by, day 2 goes by. Okay, so we're now 3 days down. You're still on 1,500 calories. But the other person who stuck to their diet is now on 1,800. And then this person, you know, we go again. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you've got somebody who you've got person 1 here who's sticking to it, and they're just kind of getting this gradual curve now. Whereas you've got person 2 who is like up, down, but their baseline then doesn't really ever get the opportunity to change, because as soon as a gain comes in, it's like we want to try and get it back off so we can get to a stable point where we can then gradually build them up again. So, but it's like going back to them 2 gals that I said as an example, like they're set up for off season perfectly now, you know. And even if we do want to push it, like absolute worst case, you know, bearing in mind they're not anything over 5 kilos up now, at absolute worst case, even if we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, bearing in mind they're hitting nearly the 4K mark anyway, like at some point they're going to be getting quite full up on food. Like at absolute worst case, they're going to start a prep 10 kilos up. You know, and then you're looking at, in terms of feasibility of prep, you're then looking at something probably between the realms of about 14 to 20 weeks, or, you know, depending on what show you're doing, what condition, etc. But whereas you've then got somebody else over here who's 15 kilos up, and you're like, I've got to have to give you, it's half a year. You know, if you're looking at somebody who's like in the realms of 20 kilos up, like 15 kilos to 20 kilos up, like, you know, and also
25 week prep, like
but and also at that point, right, that person that's probably 15 to 20 kilos up, their baseline of calories is probably not that high either, because they didn't reverse diet, and because that was just kept going up and up and up throughout getting the maintenance up, they're probably actually on less than the other people. And then like you think to yourself, well, I've got 15 kilos I need to take off you here, but also I've not got a hell of a lot of room to play with here. So I'm probably it's going to be a 26-week prep at that point, because, you know, if you're going to say probably half a kilo a week, based on you don't really know how well they're going to respond, but also, you know, you've got a lot to get off. So you need to make sure you give yourself enough time. You've then got person 1 who successfully reversed diet is going to have a 4-month prep, compared to person 2 who's going to have a savage 6-month prep.
Would you say, when you are reversing someone out of a show, do you work off like specific kind of percents, or like do you want them to only ever gain X amount of their body weight back, or what way do you deal with it? And would it be different for the enhanced girls versus the natural girls, and what approach that you take with them?
Yeah, so I think, like, I wouldn't say like I have a set amount. Obviously, the thing is, visuals obviously is number 1 key factor. Like, you know, but you know, if somebody checks in and I look at the visuals and I'm like, okay, yeah, you look no different to yesterday, but you've gained a kilo, am I going to put more food in at that point? Probably not. Because although I can't visually see that kilo, but again, trying to visually see a kilo over a day is going to be quite difficult at times, right? Especially on the way up, because, you know, you're depleted. When you start eating more food, you're going to fill up a little bit more. So, you know, if I'm seeing scale weight go up by a kilo over a day, I'm probably at that point going to let it settle a little bit. You know, but if somebody, as an example, you know, probably up to about 300 or 400 grams has gone up, fairly minimal for me. So at that point, again, I'll probably put a little bit more food in. How much I put in will determine probably on that gain as well. You know, so if, say, for example, you know, let's say Scar's reverse dieting and I put some more food in and she drops a kilo, the amount of food I will put in that day will be far greater than it would be if somebody's stayed stable, as an example. And I wouldn't say I have like set numbers on that. Again, it will depend on where their macros are at that point. Like I will, to start with, very kind of heavily push on the carb front. That will kind of be where I'll start. And again, it'll just depend on where that person's at. But yeah, it depending on what they gain and how much they gain, how little if they drop or whatever, then again will depend on how much I put in. Because again, you know, if I've got somebody who, let's just say, and I'm going to use the numbers so I can explain my theory, but let's just say we've got somebody and they're sitting at 56 kilos and I'm like, this is like, I don't know, 3 days post show, 56 kilos. And I'm like, I'm happy that this is the minimum we need to be for us to start reverse dieting. So basically what I'm saying in that scenario is I don't need to take anything off of you because I'm happy that this is kind of our starting point. You know, if somebody checks in the next day at 55 kilos as a result of the changes I've made, I'm probably going to ramp in 200 calories at that point, because the way I see it is I've got a kilo to play with from where I was happy with, if that makes sense. So I'm like, you know, if tomorrow you're 56, I'm going to still give you a bit more food again, because I'm like, I was happy at 56 and I was happy with the look at that point. So the kind of leeway that I'll give you, because again, my focus is I want to get your food up as quick as possible. But also I know that I'm checking you in every day. So because I can keep such a close eye on it, whereas you'll have other coaches that will probably say, here's 300 calories today and I'll speak to you next week. Like, whereas I might be, because they're not speaking to them until next week, so they might give them a little bit more because they're not going to pay any attention to what they're doing until next week. Whereas with me, I might be like, okay, we went up by 0.3 today, but visuals I'm happy with. Here's 7. We're going to put 75 calories in that might be from carbs as an example, because I know then tomorrow I'm going to know what that's done. Like we put that food in today, the next day I know exactly where we're at. So that's kind of how I will balance it. It's just based on response, basically. Like, you know, I will, depending on it's what I'm seeing and what the numbers saying. And I'm not saying that this is a pure focus on scale weight, right? But the likelihood is if I put food in and you've gone up a kilo, as an example, we probably want to let it settle. Yeah. Because then what's probably going to happen is the next day you'll check in, we'll be flatlined, we'll go again. Whereas when you've put in that kilo, if I then put in more, we're then going to just keep gaining and keep gaining and keep gaining. So, you know, ultimately what I'm kind of looking for when I'm reversing somebody is any drop, a stall or a very, very small gain. And then I'm going to start loading more in, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think coming back to what you said.
Sorry. What about if people have like gone fully like binging and they can't, like, how would you control that? Like if someone's like, I can't even, I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm, you know, because when you've not, like what you said before, with that goal gone, like how would you keep someone's mindset in the right place to keep pushing for the 6 weeks that are needed without?
Yeah, and it is difficult. I think coming back to the point earlier, like somebody has to take some accountability somewhere. Like, you know, unless you're in my house sitting next to me and I stop you physically putting it in your mouth, there's not much more I can I can't do more than that. But certainly for me, I will really try and articulate. And I don't want it to sound like in a way like it's almost like a manipulation thing, because that's kind of what it might sound like. But it's like I'm going to make you aware of all of these things that I've just spoken to you both about off season, like just it's really like, please just try and keep your head on, like for just you know, give me 2 days and then I'll give you an off plan. Or if there's other ways that I can just try and incentivize someone, like, you know, if you can give me 4 days, what's your favorite meal that you want to eat? I love Five Guys. All right, give me these 4 days and we'll stick a Five Guys in at the weekend.
Yeah, it's like that delayed gratification kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. If there's ways I can obviously if there's ways in which I can incentivize somebody by doing things like that, then I will do that. You know, again, if somebody is like, it depends how severe we're talking. Like if they are really going crazy, I have to bring baseline food up at that point. Like sometimes you just have to just accept the fact that, you know, you're just going to have to happen. Like, it's just going to have to happen. You know, at the end of the day, if you're eating 800 calories per night, but I can give you 350 calories worth of, you know, a big bowl of oats, and it's going to stop you doing it. If that can limit the gain in that sense, then I'll do that. You know, I've had people who just can't stick to it, and that's fine. Like, you know, not everyone can do it. Like, it is tough, you know, and especially when you've gone through such a savage few months of prepping. Like, you know, sometimes you do just want that freedom, and also sometimes some people are just happy to gain as well. Like, you know, there is that as well. There is some people that will just be happy to just gain, and that, you know, and if that's what you want, then
Being fat is better than feeling like a zombie, kind of thing.
Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes,
I don't care, just feed me.
Yeah, like sometimes people are just happy with that as well. But it's just about, I think, Scar, back to your question, it's kind of just trying to really sell the benefits of that kind of short-term pain and long-term gain. Like, it's kind of like, and like I say, it's not in a manipulating way, but it's like, just you're going to be unhappy for these next 3 weeks. Like, it's going to be hard, but 3 weeks unhappy is better than 6 months unhappy. Like, and it's really trying to just sell the benefits. And also, I will use other clients, like I've mentioned here, as the examples as well. Like, it's like, look, I have somebody who has stuck to this and they're eating 3,500 calories a day now. Like, this could be you. This could be you. This can be you. Like, this can be you. Like, so you just give me these 3 weeks as an example, like, and your food will be at that point, and you will start to feel normal. And there will be a day where you'll go, oh, do you know what? I'm actually not hungry today.
Yeah.
Or you'll be like,
great.
I'm supposed to eat at 1 o'clock and it's now 2 o'clock. Like, I need to catch up because I've got loads of meals to get. You know, and it does happen. Like, I've done it myself. I've reverse dieted out this time. And although I've kind of done mine a little bit different, because I'm trying to like hold my condition intentionally. I know, Scar, we've kind of briefly spoken about it, but like, I'm on like 4,200 calories now. And don't get me wrong, like, I could eat more, but this 4,200 calories now was the same as it was 3 weeks ago, and how it felt to me 3 weeks ago feels very different now. Like, you know, I'm sitting there eating 100 grams of oats in the evening. I'm like, oh, like licking the spoon. Whereas now I'm like, do you know what? This is getting a bit of a slug. Nothing's changed. It's just, it does just get better every day.
Yeah, like your hunger hormones and stuff just settle down after a few weeks. Like, they're running riot for the first few, for sure.
Exactly. Like, it does just get better. And it's just, again, it's just trying to really sell the benefits to people. And it's like, if you can almost give them numerous case studies as well, where, you know, you know, if someone's fucking starving and you dangle the carrot of 3,500 calories in their head and they're only eating 2,000 now, and they're thinking, oh, that's double what I'm eating now. You know, that might make them go, do you know what? I'm going to suffer a bit tomorrow, because if that means that in 2 weeks' time I'm going to be on that much food, like, I'm going to do it. So it's just, I think it's trying to do your absolute best to really just try and sell the benefits of short-term pain for the long-term gain. Because we all want to progress in our off season as well, right? And if you're starting your off season at a point where you're unhappy, it's going to be a horrid time going forward.
I wanted to ask you, because I see some people do this, and I've always just found it absolutely insane. People will book like a big holiday the day after, and they go to Vegas and they have buffets, and I'm like, what
honestly,
are you doing? So, like,
you know what?
Just explain for people listening, like, the actual damage that is going to do to your body in that state.
Honestly, this is like one of my pet hates. The amount of people that I've had to be like, do not do this. Like, don't do this. I remember I did a talk at Marnie's posing seminar, like, back at the start of the year. And this was literally I did a bit on reverse diet, and it was top of my don'ts. And it is literally, do not go on holiday. It is the worst possible thing anyone can do, because your body is the most sensitive. You are then not only going to go and eat loads of crap food, you're going to be putting food in your body's not used to. Like, you're going to spend your holiday feeling like shit. And, you know, if you pick somewhere sunny, it is horrible binging in hot heat as a start. Like, it's going to be food you don't like. It's going to be in the heat, which means you're going to be sitting there sweating, like getting carb sweats, feeling like shit. And you're going to hate your holiday because you're going to actually watch yourself balloon up daily.
Yeah.
Literally.
So quickly. Yeah.
And I don't care what people will go, yeah, but I'll eat healthy. No, you won't. And also, you're healthy. You might go to a restaurant and you might look at the menu and go, that chicken and rice is healthy. Yes, but they've also got 40 grams of oil on it.
Yeah.
And you have been eating 35 grams of fat for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In a day, you are going to eat 100. And all that is
easy. Yeah.
Lumen.
Give me that cheese.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, I've never ever seen anyone do it, come back from a holiday and not be minimum 5 kilos. And then you're then depressed, not only because you're 5 kilos up, you're depressed because your holiday's over. And then if you've got your coach turn around to you and going, right, it's your calories that you was on before holiday, it's horrendous. Whereas if you can just, again, have that 3 or 4 week period after where you can get your baseline up, then go on holiday. Like, it is literally, it is the worst thing. Like, it's one of my pet hates. I literally see people like 3 days post show, like booking a holiday. I'm like, nah. Like, and the whole experience, the thing is, the whole experience of then actually like competing and going on holiday to like enjoy it, it just becomes, you just hate it because you've literally like, okay, I've gone on holiday and I'm now a mess. I've spent 6 weeks killing myself, doing hours on the Stairmaster, starving myself. And in a week where I was supposed to be on holiday enjoying myself, I've come back and I've ruined everything. Like literally, it's like top of my don'ts. It's like one of the first things I say to everyone. Do not book a holiday.
I cancel that flight, Scarlett.
Put that in the title. Literally one of the worst possible things anyone can do.
Yeah.
Now December's fine.
So offensive.
December's right.
Yeah. No.
What are the other kind of things that you see, maybe common practice for a lot of people, maybe online, post show, that are just a no-no?
So yeah, I mean, like I say, holidays, I think like definitely don't allow yourself too much time off. Like, just go and, like I always say to people, go out in the evening, make sure make sure you hydrate yourself. Like the amount of people that I see that like have water loaded, gone into a show, and then they've had like I don't know, say a litre of water on the day, but 2 days prior to that, they've been banging in 8 litres. They go and smash it, loads of salt, loads of shit food, and the next day they're like, I can't walk. I'm like, like,
I made that mistake once at the last Arnold's I did, my last bikini show. I was on so late in the day that I drank fuck all water all day, and I went to a rave that night. Such a great idea. I have never, guys, I have never ever had a hangover that matched this in my life. Like, literally, Gary found me lying in a corridor, huddled up in a ball, because I was just like, I can't. It was such a terrible idea.
I actually did it. So when I first competed in 2015, and I got prepped by somebody who just didn't really know what they was doing. So I'd had a big water load, but I literally got my water cut. So I don't cut water completely, never. You can't cut water completely. One of the worst things you can do. But at the time, this was before I was even started coaching or even had any knowledge on anything. It's 8 years ago now. Literally, I didn't drink any fluid for 24 hours, no fluid at all. I remember coming into my hotel and basically saying, you just need to take that, at the time, diuretic. Never have taken one since. I don't use diuretics with any clients either. Took a diuretic, but was not told what it was, drink water, anything. I remember come off stage, I remember ordering a Papa John's to the show, smashed that down, then went out in the evening, smashed loads. The amount of salt I must have had was probably enough for the week. And then I let the next day, I'm like driving home. At the time I was with my mum and dad, and they're like driving me home. I was walking in a service station, and I literally just walked and just collapsed, but like not like head collapsed, like the dehydration in my legs. Like there was just, I couldn't get up, and I literally had to be carried for the remainder of the day because literally the dehydration was so bad. And like I say to people, I see people all the time, and like they go out post show. And I say, like, drink loads of water. Like, if you're gonna like eat a meal, like fine. And then all of a sudden, what I then see is I post on their story, and they've got like a glass of wine and cocktails. I'm like, no, like, no, what are you doing? Like, do not do that.
Yeah.
That's one thing as well. Like, don't drink alcohol post show either. Like, you know, if you want a glass of wine, just have a glass of wine in 2 days. Like, just like, especially and you know what? If you've been walked into a show and you haven't water depleted, like different story. Do you know what I mean? There's some people who, like, you know, I remember when Marnie won our pro card, like I didn't water deplete her. Like we literally just kept water stable into the show. And it's different when it's like that. But if you are dehydrated, like don't drink booze after. Make sure you are like hydrating yourself as well. But yeah, just coming back to like reversing your like holidays, absolutely avoid. For me personally, I would say to people like just avoid off plan apart from like your post show meal.
I was going to ask you about off plans, what the situation there is.
Like for me personally, like I will try and leave them out for probably at least 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Personally. And another reason as well, like which I always talk about when it comes to off plans, and this is valid in prep and kind of reversing. Like I always say that I'm not somebody who really gives off plans as a result through prep or post or anything. But that's not because I'm like about gaining or anything. Like it's about a mental headspace. Like I always say this like analogy of like, if I say like, if I ask Scar now, like the last time she had a burger and chips, right, probably might have been 6 months ago. And if I say to you, like, you know, what do you remember of that burger and chips? You'd probably say to me, because you was deep in off season, you'd probably go to me, it was nice. You probably wouldn't rave about it, right? You'd go, you know, the last time I had burger and chips, it was nice, I enjoyed it, but whatever. If you're somebody who's having off plans every week, like the last time you'd remember having your Five Guys is, I remember it and it was nice, right? If you then have that burger and chips, the last memory you have of it is that it was nice, it was all right, yeah? If you then are going into, if you're reversing, for example, and you go and have that Five Guys, once you've had it, the last memory you have of that is it tasted fucking unbelievable. And that thought is going to stay with you for the next 5 weeks. All you're going to think about is the last time you had that burger and chips, is it tasted fucking unbelievable. And once you do that, you're sending yourself wild. You're literally, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's the reason why I will keep them out. Like, you know, you have your bit post show, because you can't restrict somebody and say they can't have a meal post show. But after that, like I'm very strong and strict on not giving them until after a bit more of a longer period, because otherwise you're just going to send yourself wild. And when I come back to that first point, which we spoke about at the start of the call, of when you don't have that goal, like, so you're now in a position like where you don't have a goal. The last time you remembered eating your favorite meal was that it tasted absolutely unbelievable. The chances of you probably going and eating that again when you shouldn't are high. It's so like, and it's so, for me, I'm like, avoid off plans when you are reversing until you are in a decent position where you're not absolutely losing your mind over food, because it's just going to send you wild. Whereas, like I say, if your last thought of when you had that meal was just that it tasted nice, because you've not had it for so long, you don't really know what it tastes like. And don't get me wrong, you look at it on Instagram and you go, cool, that looks nice, but you don't actually really remember what it tastes like. Whereas when you've actually now tasted it and you've now not got a goal, it's game over. And there is when like your reverse dieting is going to be like a nightmare. Do you know what I mean? So that's like one thing that I would say, just for me personally. And like some people be like, oh, you need to be a bit more lenient, but like, nah, like, because it's only for your best interest. Like just keep them off plans out for that period. Like, again, comes back to that point where I just keep saying short-term pain for long-term gain. Because again, if you apply the same principle with off plans, you don't have one for 6 weeks, but then your calories are then so high in off season, you can probably get away with having it every week. But you eat it 3 times, 4 times in them 2 or 3 week periods, and you're now 6-7 kilos up going into your off season, you ain't going to be able to enjoy them off plans, because what's going to happen when you have them is you're just going to keep gaining and keep gaining, and all that's going to result to, it's just unhappiness again. Like, mentally, it's just not going to leave you in a good place. Whereas mentally, if you're in a good place where your calories are in a decent position and you get to eat a Five Guys every week, because it's not going to do any damage because your calories are at 4K, happy days. Happy days.
And on that note, what's your favourite off plan, Jake?
Oh, do you know what? I'm a big pizza fan. I do like a nice Italian pizza with a bit of garlic bread.
And crispy.
Yeah, I won't take a Domino's, none of that shit. No, a proper homemade bit of prosciutto ham and a nice bit of garlic bread and maybe some calamari. Lovely.
Yeah, okay, that's probably my favorite answer so far.
Yeah. Sure is.
It's fine. I've got a bagel today.
Jay, thank you so much for coming on. That was absolutely savage. Like, there was so much in that. I know people are going to get a lot from it. Do you want to tell everybody where to find you, how to work with you, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, cool. So my business Instagram is amplified_nutrition, but I do have a personal one, which, to be honest with you, is probably more businessy than my actual business one now. So at JakeWatts_amp. So yeah, prep coach. So if anyone's interested in jumping on board and likes the sound of my savage reverses, but my short-term pain for long-term gain, then you know where to find me.
Amazing, Jake. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of season 2. We will see you back next week for another epic guest. Bye.
See you later.